Hello, everyone, and welcome to Whitley Penn Talks, where we give you valuable insights to help you make confident, informed decisions and move your business forward. My name is Kendall Newcomb, and today we're back with our healthcare industry leaders to give highlights of our recent healthcare conference that we hosted in Dallas on November 13th. We're also here to answer some of your questions that we received live at the conference, but I'd like to welcome my two guests today. We have Jolee and Josh joining us from our healthcare industry team. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Hello.
Appreciate you guys appreciate being here.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And Jolee, we had you just a few episodes ago, so I'm sure that listeners are familiar, but if you won't mind, will you give a quick intro on your background before we get started?
Sure. I'm Jolee Patnaude. I'm with Whitley Penn, RCM Advisory. So I've been doing healthcare revenue cycle management for about 25 plus years, and mainly billing and coding, but I do the advisory part for everything from patient access all the way to collections.
I'm glad you explained what RCM was.
Thank
I
you.
was gonna have to do that.
It's important.
It is.
And we've got Josh Agren here as well. Josh, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my second podcast. First one was probably 5 years ago. So, times have changed. Things are different. But yeah, I'm Josh Agren, healthcare practice leader. I'm in the Fort Worth office here. Been at Whitley Penn for 17 years and brought on Jolee about a year ago to help our clients with basically their number one issue in the healthcare world, which is revenue cycle and billing and collecting. I think it's a pretty important concept of the healthcare world, bill and collect, right?
It is, yeah.
You do the billing part, but you also do the collection part.
I do, yeah. I kind of do both.
You can be good at one and not the other, and that's also
Yes.
bad. So
Yeah.
got to be good at billing and collecting.
You have to keep your cash flow
Yes.
going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, very excited to dive in today with both of you. And I know we've got a lot to talk about, but I think to begin, we can do a quick summary of our healthcare conference. So that did happen on November 13th, just a couple weeks ago in Dallas. And I think it was a great turnout. What would you both say?
Oh yeah, I think it was a really good crowd. We had a really good RCM panel. So got lots of feedback as far as from people going, this was really good information, and we hope you guys do this again next year or even more. So we will definitely be doing that again.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is give content right to the folks that are out there. So Jolee, the RCM panel, she ran that one. We had a legal regulatory update panel with some really good folks, around the DFW Metroplex. We had a M&A transaction advisory panel with investment bank, with some family office guys and some providers out there in the lending world, and we had basically a CEO panel, leadership panel. So kind of good content. Everybody had great things to say. So we just build the momentum, keep it going. I think we had 120 people sign up, so we're going to double that next year.
Yeah, that's the goal. Constant improvement there. Really proud of how that one turned out and looking forward to the next for sure. So if you're listening to this and you joined us a couple weeks ago in person, we're thankful that you were able to be there. And if you're listening to this and you weren't, we hope that you join us for the next. Definitely. Now, kind of diving into more of our topic for this episode, where we're recapping that conference and running through some frequently asked questions that both Josh and Jolee received during the conference. So to start, I think just in general, everyone is pretty curious on what major challenges we're expecting for the future of the healthcare industry and kind of how that will all shake down over the next few years. So what are your thoughts there?
Go ahead, take it, Jolee.
Okay. So overall, the biggest question that did come up quite a few times during the conference even was workforce. So even between the business side and the clinicians, there's a really big question as to how well we're going to be able to keep going with this. We still have doctors coming in, we still have nurses coming in, but the numbers have dropped. Also on the business side, the skill sets aren't always there. The training is kind of specific to that area or service line. So there's a lot of gaps that are going on. And of course, we're kind of concerned about burnout. That is, as we know from 2020, that's a big thing. So overall, I think one of the biggest things was workforce shortages. Also the AI security and how AI is going to function in healthcare. There's a lot of question as to how they're going to apply it. There's a lot of concern, just due to the fact that you are using patient information and you're A lot of people are just plugging it into AI, and you should not do that because that is basically just on the internet. So you should have a specific AI to your facility or provider that is secure, because
Mhm.
you are still dealing with PHI or patient health information. So this is something that a lot of people did talk about. But AI is coming, and I think it's going to be a really good tool as long as it's applied correctly, and not used significantly or independently. So if it's used with a person making sure that things are going through correctly and being used properly, I think that's going to be the key.
Yeah, automation for sure. I mean, I think AI is obviously here. I think there's attempts. Jolie can talk about some of this in a little bit, but there's, some of the big providers are trying to use it and kind of throwing it in there. If anybody tells you they're really good with AI tools in the healthcare world, I think I got something else I can sell them too. But like, I would say generally it's new and people are trying to figure it out. And I think the automation side, especially for us, we're using some of the automation tools, but ultimately, no, nobody's great at it yet. A lot of people are messing up, and we would like to see everyone else mess up so we can make sure that if we utilize it the right way going forward. But also to Jolie's point, you talk about the burnout and the healthcare side, and you talk about the way things have changed. In Carp's panel, a couple weeks ago, the CEO panel, leadership panel, talked about the change in healthcare. Right,
Yep.
like 20
Mhm.
years ago, you get a broken arm. What do? You go to the emergency room, right? And
Yes.
now you have surgery centers, and now you have orthopedic centers, and you have
Standalone
all
ERs.
these standalone ERs, right? And
Mhm.
the service model is wildly different than it was 20 years ago.
Yep.
And so those are all things that are changing. And getting back to the burnout point, like part here, the
Mhm.
doctors, struggle to find, what their exit strategy, right? Like, where do they go, right? A lot of private practice was a thing, right? And then it's okay. Now you join a hospital. That way you don't have to deal with anything. You just go be a doctor. And
Mhm.
if you have a private practice, how do you exit that private practice? And so we're kind of helping our clients understand that and what that looks like. And to get them a pipeline of physicians to take over the practice over time is a struggle. We've seen doctors just walk away from practices and not sell it and not give it to anybody or not transition the patient. So I mean, those are things that are happening, and we want to help our clients make sure that they get that all planned out
Yep.
for the future.
And the critical access out there right now, because as we know, a lot of, especially in Texas, there's a lot of rural hospitals. So due to the fact that with the OBA passing, which is one big beautiful bill,
Mhm.
so with that passing, there is that portion in there for that $50 billion, but that's over 5 years, and each
Mhm.
state has to apply for that. So it depends on how their application went, how many facilities they're having to shell the money out to, and what they're going to use it for. So there's a lot of ifs to come,
Right.
and the approvals won't come out until December 31st when CMS puts that out. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the money gets distributed, because everybody's like, oh, well, each state will get, like $1 million or whatever. It's like, no, that's not how it's going to play out. So it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen as that comes and what they're going to use the money for.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point, Josh, that you just made about transitioning private practices and the like, if I am a practicing physician, I mean, how many years in advance should I really start to think about that transition plan upon retirement?
Yeah, probably 5 years before you ask that question, I bet is generally the idea, right? Because to identify a physician, and have them practice with you and learn the business, it takes time, right? And so yeah, I would say I don't know, at least 5 years.
Yeah, you have to have a really good, you know, so you can actually do the gradual and not just go, "Here you go," and then walk out the door. I mean,
Mhm.
that's not workable. So, I do believe that's what 3 to 5 years is what
Yeah.
most of them were saying that would be the best way to do it. The longer the better, because then you can do a really good handoff, and you're still making, money in that process. So you're not just like, cut off and then that's it. So it's good to plan this out, and I don't know how many of them are actually doing that. Some of them are just like, "Yep, I'm gonna retire next year." It's like, Okay. What are you gonna do
Right.
now?" So,
Yeah.
it's a lot of questions.
ASAP, I would say. I mean, I think
Mm.
general, it's like any other business, right? I mean, doctors are no different than any other business. Accounting firms, right? You get a
Mhm.
manufacturer down the street here, like it's the same business, right? The ownership needs to transition, whether you sell it to, private equity, family office, whether you sell it to another doctor, whether you bring it, bring your patients to a hospital system. There's a lot of different ways to exit. It's just understanding what's best for you and what's best for your patients. And that generally is a multi-year, multifaceted, answer there. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say
Lots of
typical accountant response. It depends,
It depends. Yeah. Depends on your goals.
And the higher the specialty, right?
Yeah.
The level of, I mean, you talk about some of these specialties that are out there that doctors, went for years and years and years and built something. I mean, it takes a lot longer to transition that, depending on how specialized you are.
Yeah, your patients are very
Right.
loyal, so that's something else you got to consider.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. All very interesting to think about kind of as we continue into the next year for sure. Have either, and this is a little bit off script of me, have either of y'all watched the show The Pit?
No.
No.
Okay, add it to your Thanksgiving
Okay.
list. It won a bunch of Emmys. I can't remember what it's on, but it's essentially 12 episodes, and each episode is an hour on an ER shift. And
Ooh.
it's just how the ER
Okay.
manages flow throughout the shift and what that looks like. And there's a hospital business manager, some executive at the hospital that keeps coming down and telling them that they need to speed up care and
Mm,
move people to higher floors, to specialty floors, and make those decisions faster. And so it was a really interesting perspective
right.
into the operations of a hospital. So
Yeah.
I don't know how
No,
truthful
I
it
mean,
is, but
but
it's a good show.
that's actually, well, you bring up a good point, right? Like
hmm
there's kind of this struggle, right? You talk about hospitals. Is there any ownership group, right? If the physicians are kind of run by a management, services organization, that's owned by private equity or
hmm
something else, like there is kind of that, the doctors need to do their job, right? They need
Yep.
to take care of the patients, but there is, the doctors make more money the more patients they see, right? At times, depending on the structure, right? Or the more patients they see, the more they bill, the more money they make. And so there's always this constant struggle. We've talked to lots of doctors over the years that, understand that, but also like what gets lost at times is really the patient care part. And that's what doctors are
hmm
really, really good at, is taking care of the patient. And
Yeah.
sometimes maybe, leaving out to your point, the hospital executive telling them to do things faster, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't want to make mistakes. Number one, at all times, you got to take care of the patient, right? And so I'm interested on The Pit. Do they have a RCM specialist? Maybe we could add a guest spotlight, and then
Spotlight.
Maybe that's
we
what
could
we'll
bring to
see in
Hollywood.
season 2. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
All right, I got to let her into Hollywood on that one.
Awesome. Well, recommend for sure if you need a show to binge over the holidays. Um, Moving on kind of to our next topic point here, we've got a couple questions for Jolee and her specialty skill set there. So, Jolee, what downstream effects have you seen across the industry as a result of the healthcare enforcement operation or the fraud attempts
So
that we've been talking about?
yeah, so basically, the compliance has gone up, of course. Everybody's now worried about their compliance because of all the fraud that happened. And also on the CMS OIG side, which is Officer Inspector General and Centers of Medicare and Medicaid, I can say it today. So basically, they are actually looking at a lot of compliance that's going on with a lot of these providers. So the big thing right now is to know where your compliance is. Do you have compliance? First off, there's a lot of practices that don't, or they think that they do, but they'll say, we need to see your process and procedures. And if you don't have something written up, you can actually get in trouble for that. They are
Mm-hmm.
fining people. It's not even like a hesitation sometimes with some of them, depending upon the size of your practice and how negligent you've been about it. And if your people have no idea about what compliance is, it's time to do some education. So that's the big thing right now that's hitting a lot. They're also reviewing and slowing down the processing of claims at this point. It's not to the point where providers might see a huge delay in their payments, but it could come to that if they keep finding more and more stuff. So which they are. So right now they're looking at more of the claims, making sure that things are being billed correctly, that this is not a fraudulent claim, and that it's not a duplicate claim that was happening with some of the payers doing double duty when they were sending in their claims for Medicare
Mm-hmm.
Advantage, which is what's part of what was kicked the fraud off. So it's a lot of give and take going on right now behind the scenes, and I don't think
Mm-hmm.
everybody really knows exactly how it's going to flow out. But overall, it's slowing things down, which is going to slow your payments down. So you should
Yeah.
always have a backup or understand how your money is going to be coming in for the next 6 months, just in case they do go, we're putting a hold on, CPT, 1150, whatever. And so that, because if that happens, you're going to see providers be like, well, that's my bread and butter. What am I supposed to do? So make sure that you have enough in the bank that if something does happen or your payments get slowed up by 3 to 4 weeks, your operations is still going to be fine. So that's something that's happening right now, in real time. So that's, and they're looking to really crack down more on the claims processing and how things are going.
And for those of you listening at home, CPT code is what, Jolie?
It's a current procedural terminology.
There you go. So it's the code that you use for the procedure that the
Yes.
physician performs on,
Yeah.
on the patient, and that's what gets billed to the insurance company. Now, also, I'll throw a plug out there for Jolie's white paper she put out several weeks ago. I know we pushed that out. You could, put in the link or something on this thing. But and then the
Link
other thing,
below.
I'll also put a shout out to, you talk about procedures and, having compliance,
Yes.
that's something Jolee I'll throw a plug to Jolee, right? She writes up SOPs for her clients and helps them out in those situations. So
Yeah.
you need some help, you give Jolee a call.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
becoming an issue. So it's something that they're really, really looking at. So
Yeah. And Jolie, what's a good question that, say, a practice can't answer a question related to compliance? What's a question that comes to mind that you would say is sort of a yellow flag if you aren't able to answer it?
Well, actually, the first thing that happens is if somebody walks in as doing an audit and they say, "What's your compliance procedure?" And if somebody just looks at you like they have no idea what you're talking about, that's a red flag. So, the compliance is basically understanding what you're supposed to be doing, staying within the HIPAA guidelines and staying, making sure the PHI stays PHI and it's not being, used or abused. So the compliance requires for everything. I mean, from the patient calling all the way for the provider seeing them, all the way to the back end. So it's everything has to be where it's supposed to be and how it's, the processes are supposed to be done in a specific manner. So everybody does it a little bit differently. I'm not going to lie about that, but there's wiggle room, but you still have to stay within those guidelines. So you need to make sure that you're staying within those guidelines.
Yeah, definitely. And have documentation accordingly, I
Yes.
would assume as well. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, our last kind of, small topic here today is going to be diving back into AI. So we mentioned in the beginning of this episode a little bit about some of the implications that AI have brought into the healthcare space, but how are insurance payers using AI, and what does that look like currently?
So the payers initiated the AI, when it first became, really big, everybody was using it, like the
Mm-hmm.
keywords. And initiating it basically caused a huge bump of denials. They actually were up to like 33% of denial, 33% denial increase.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it is out there. It's documented that UHC and Blue Cross were the ones that when they released the AI, it automatically just started denying all the claims
Mm.
because they have aggressively put their algorithm in there that it's supposed to look for specific things and it's on an automatic denial. So
Yeah.
that has been, I'm not going to, say totally pulled back, but they have kind of pulled it back a bit and they're reviewing their algorithm or changing it or modifying it, however you'd like to see that. But it's still incorporated into the process. So
Mm-hmm.
overall, these things are still happening. And since 2020, I do believe it's gone up. Denials have gone up over 25%. Just year after year, they just keep going up. And right now they're 25% higher than they were in 2020. So
Mm-hmm.
and again, there's just being aggressive of not processing claims. And that hurts the providers, which then can't give patient care because either they can't get supplies or they can't keep people. I mean, it's just a domino effect or a snowball effect. I mean, it's going to happen because you're not having your revenue come in correctly. And I think that it just amazes me that the payers still make it so difficult, and yet the providers have to follow all these rules and all these regulations, but the payers do not. It's kind of so one-sided, it's not even fair, and I'm like, "Is it healthcare or is it corporation? So which is it?"
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that balancing out. And I don't think it's happening enough. So
Yeah.
like, again, I can go on and on, but I'm not going to. So
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
like I said earlier on this deal is if anybody's saying they're really good at implementing AI, I think that's a stretch, and I think that's something we got to keep our eyes on. And I'll throw another plug out to Jolee. If you don't have a proper denials management process, and if you're not properly addressing your denials, and you're not getting paid, that's when you call Jolee.
yeah, always look
Mm-hmm.
at your contracts and make sure you're getting paid correctly. That's what we can do for you. So we can go in and do a complete audit. We can look at your processes, both billing and coding. I'm certified in coding, so I could do a coding audit for you also. You'd be
Mm-hmm.
amazed at how many, it's like you say, when was your last coding audit? And they just go, have we ever had one? So, I mean, it's literally a thing and people don't understand that, especially the smaller practices. They don't think about it. And that
Mm-hmm.
can come back to bite you because in some cases, if CMS shows up or something like that, that's some of the first things they ask you is, when was your last time you had a billing audit or a coding audit? So these things do happen. And I don't think people really understand that they're taking this very seriously right now. And they will
Mm-hmm.
start showing up at different doors. And I don't know if everybody's ready.
Right. And I mean, to bring this somewhat full circle to the beginning of the conversation to succession planning and making sure that your practice is able to be succeeded at the end of the day. I would imagine that making sure all of these processes and procedures and compliance documentation has been done along the way to make that transition even more successful. Would we agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I think that that's pretty much what we're hoping to uncover today on this episode. And Jolee, I know this is your second, so Josh, we'll have you back for a second
Do it.
in the next few episodes, I'm sure. But thank you both again. This has all been extremely helpful. Again, if you're out there listening and you did not attend our healthcare conference this November, make sure that you do join us for the next. We can link Jolee's white paper in the comments of this episode. So if you're listening again, it'll be linked below. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or listen right on our website at whitleypenn.com/podcast. If you're interested in receiving our episodes straight to your inbox, along with other industry updates like white papers, events, etc., check the link in the description as well to sign up for our email list. Truly, thank you both, and we hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.